Good Friday evening, everybody. Happy New Year, and we're getting you ready for Panthers and Bucks for a potential playoff spot for Carolina. This is Panthers on the Plus. I'm WCNC Charlotte Sports Director Nick Carboni. It has been a great week. We have had one of these episodes, not just every Monday like we've done all year, but every single night of the week leading up to this pivotal game down in Tampa Bay with special guests and experts. And tonight our guest returns. She was here, I think, before week one. So we set the tone with Vashti Hurt, and she comes back to hopefully carry us into a big weekend. Vashti Hurt from CarolinaBlitz.com. You can find her at Keep Blitzin'. Vashti, what's up? It's a big week.
It's a big week. It's a good space for us, especially as beat writers and reporters covering the team, to be in a place where people actually care at the end of the season. They're not in mock draft mode. So this is a good space for everyone.
Well, let's dive right into it because the injury list for both teams pose a lot of questions about this matchup. So we'll start with the Panthers. David Moore and Rob Hunt have each been on injured reserve. Do you think either or both have a chance to play Saturday afternoon?
I think we would have found out by now whether they would have been able to play. I'm guessing neither Rob Hunt or David Moore come in. I'm not sure where David Moore really fits into this offense or in that wide receiver room. Who would be left out? Because when you elevate these guys to the 53-man roster, you have to cut someone, and I think that's the conundrum right there. Right now, with injuries on their own side, the Panthers have to keep as many pieces as possible for depth defensively. So I don't know if Rob Hunt. I think Rob Hunt, they would need Rob Hunt more than they would need David Moore, but I doubt either of them are elevated for this game.
Turk Wharton, the defensive tackle, questionable. I mean, he had one of the most bizarre injuries I've ever heard of, tripping over somebody to walk through a couple of weeks ago. How big would it be if Wharton could be, joining Derek and Bobby Brown on that front again?
Yeah, I mean, depth, right? And Bobby Brown has done a good job coming in, starting for Turk Wharton. It just adds another body to that mix. And you mentioned, the Tampa Bay is coming in. They're going to want to mix it up after taking that L a couple of weeks ago. So whenever you can win in the trenches, the likelihood of you winning in the game increases. And so Turk adds to that trench on the defensive side of the ball.
And this is what would concern me the most. We've got Claudin Charles, who's already a reserve linebacker, starting. He is out, which elevates Chris Barnes, a veteran they scooped up in the middle of the season, who's been around. He's been able to get on the field for multiple teams, including this one. But, if I'm the Bucs, I'm already thinking about leaning in to the run game anyway because of how Baker looks and because they had 169 yards in the last matchup. How concerning is that linebacker position for you right now?
It is a concern, right? You're without your starting linebacker in Trevin, and then you have his replacement in Claudin Charles, who is out. So now you're down to third string or guys who would typically be on the practice squad filling in that starter role. Obviously, that would be a concern. The Panthers have been able to handle, because Trevin Wallace, even Christian Roseboom, they have had injuries and been in and out all season. So they're going to have to adjust. It's going to have to be a next man up mentality. But as you mentioned, if I see them banged up at that linebacker position, unless Chris Barnes has a game of his life, that's something I would try to exploit if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Bucs are honestly even more banged up. So cornerback Jamel Dean is out. That could be big. And Baker Mayfield, full participant, I believe, on Thursday, but there's been a lot going on with Baker the last 8 weeks. And now it went from left shoulder to throwing shoulder and knee. How limited do you think Baker is coming into this game?
He will be physically limited but banged up, right? Everybody is banged up. By the time you get to week 18, every single player, whether it's documented or not, is dealing with some type of pain, some type of injury. As Canales has said all week, Baker is a tough guy. So I expect for him to play, absolutely. Whether his shoulder is bothering him or not, he feels like, and I'm sure the team feels like, he gives them the best opportunity to win, and he's going to lay it all on the line and put it all on the line for his team. He's in a slump, though. So, like you said, that run game is going to be crucial for him, but Baker's going to do what he needs to do to play.
All right, let's talk about energy and vibes. Doesn't sound like a lot of good stuff going down in Tampa Bay. In the Panthers locker room this week, it seems like it does every other week. The team just lost, but they know they can go out and win the next game. What was your takeaway from being around the team this week heading into this big game?
Yeah, consistent vibes, good vibes. You know, guys are playing their cards on the ping pong table. They are focused in, and this is a team that, like the coach, like Bryce Young, stays pretty even. There are a few locker rooms that have been worse than others. I think that New Orleans one, where they lost several weeks ago, that was a bad one. Maybe one or two at the beginning of the season. But the attitude of this team is, okay, we fell off on this week. Now we got to pick it up the next. And it has worked for them. And it also gives you confidence heading into this week. So the vibes in the locker room have been consistent. They're good. I think guys are talking and laughing, not uptight given the situation that they're in, with likely playoffs or go home. So, yeah, the locker room has been a good one.
All right, and last question in this segment, Vashti. We've seen so many fan bases take over the bank. I'm getting the feeling there's this groundswell of folks that are heading down to Florida this week. Derek Brown, a couple weeks ago, said, hey, thanks for the great home crowd. Hope you all want to travel in a couple weeks. So here we are. Do you think there could be a good Carolina contingent down there?
Absolutely. And those Tampa Bay fans, Tampa is funny because you have a lot of guys who are people who are season ticket holders that are fans of other teams.
Yep.
So they just resell their tickets. I think Tampa has one of the better resale markets as far as tickets are concerned. So if the Panthers fans, and I have several who have hit me up saying that they're in Tampa, they're going to be in Tampa. So I think the availability of tickets will be there. It's not too far. You can actually drive it. I think it's maybe a 7-hour drive. So I expect there to be a large contingent of Panthers fans at Raymond James on Saturday. And it's going to be fun.
All right, Vashti Hurt, we're going to talk about that fun game and what it is going to require for a victory for Carolina coming up here on Panthers on the Plus. Welcome back to Panthers on the Plus, here with Vashti Hurt from CarolinaBlitz.com. Just want to send out a quick note. Tomorrow, before kickoff, we'll have a live watch party here on WCNC Plus. We'll have Eugene Robinson breaking down plays during the game, and we'll have Locked On's Julian Council here to talk about everything Panthers Bucks as well. Vashti will be in Tampa Bay. Vashti, it seems like this is a game, because of its nature, not quite do or die, but it basically is. It has to be, and if you're a competitor, it seems like the type of game that would require an aggressive mindset from a play calling standpoint on both sides of the ball. Do you think Dave Canales and Ejiro Evero are going to be down to do that on Saturday?
Well, Dave Canales has to. They cannot afford another output like they had last week against Seattle. Bryce throwing for less than 60 yards. I think their longest offensive play was an 11-yard rush. You can't have that in a game that is with the division title basically on the line. So Canales is going to have to be aggressive and take more downfield shots, something that they didn't get last week and something that they have struggled with during this season. And he's going to have to use the run to open up the pass. So get Rico, get Chuba, figure out that dynamic. I thought he had it against the LA Rams, but there's been a regression since. So figure out that run game and how you want to work Chuba and Rico. And then I'd like for him to do a little bit better on that third down calling. But as far as aggressiveness, he's going to have to be aggressive. Evero is going to stay true to his scheme, but he's going to have to dial up some exotic things as well.
Do you think the run game is where they want it to be right now? Like in the middle of the season, especially on that Rico run, it was one of the best in the league. Do you think they can get that back for this, basically must-win game?
It really depends. That's where those trenches matter, right? That offensive line is going to have to get that push. That's where Icky, that's where Damian Lewis, that's where Cade Mays, that's where that comes into play. And then a guy like Rico, who I think is a really patient runner, can really eat in a game like this where you're going up against a banged-up Tampa Bay defense. So if Rico can get out, get a couple of spurts, and really get the run game going earlier, I think it will open it up as the game goes along. But those first couple of drives will be crucial. But I think it can be done.
Yeah, 101 last time out against Tampa. That's the strength of their defense, if there is one, is that front, and 99 against the really tough Seahawks defense, obviously. Defensively, you mentioned, I mean, yes, Ejiro is probably going to kind of stick to his guns and be that bend but don't break. This is a Tampa team. Baker's obviously had his issues, but they've been getting these offensive weapons back, and the Panthers' defense, especially the secondary, kept a lot of them in check last time out. How do they kind of replicate that this time, especially when it comes to Mike Jack and J.C. Horn?
Well, the strategy for them early on was to isolate Mike Williams and Mike Evans and Mike Jack into situations, and then make Mike Jack check a guy who's a future Hall of Famer. And outside of that one series, Mike Jack did a good job. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board because they're not going to be able to target Mike Jack, who is statistically having a really good season at cornerback, one of the best in the league. They're not going to be able to exclusively go after him. So they're going to have to mix it up. I think they will on the back end. Evero's defense is going to give up a lot in the middle, but the hope is that they get enough push and those stingy guys in the secondary are able to take advantage of it. I think they're going to have their work cut out for them because Baker is, based on Baker's health, he's going to take a couple shots. He's going to need to.
All right, so big picture, Vashti, how have you processed the season so far that is at the same time certainly seen progress, but also all these disappointments along the way? And we'll see where it all falls after this weekend, but how have you kind of seen it so far?
I mean, whether the Panthers go to the playoffs or not, I don't think you can look at this season as a failure in any aspect. The last several years, as I mentioned earlier, fans were in mock draft mode. Panthers were just playing for pride, or they would tell us they're playing for the name on the back of their jersey. They just had to channel other things other than a playoff hope. Now they're playing for the playoffs. And so, I think that overall it's a successful season, and you can't look at it as a disappointment. Ebbs and flows. You've seen progress from Bryce. You've seen progress from Canales. You've seen progress on offense, and defense has gotten better from a historically worst defense in the league last season. So playoffs or not, win this week or not, this season was a success for the Carolina Panthers.
It just seems like this week is the confluence of two Panthers teams in one, right? Like the team that wins every other week, so then you say, okay, they're going to win. But then there's the version of the team that can't handle the business when they absolutely need to take care of it. Do you have a lean on like which one is going to show up on Saturday?
Listen, I'm a girl who appreciates numbers because numbers are something that don't have bias, right? Yep. And statistically, the Panthers have won when their backs were against the wall, or won when they needed to, when they weren't favored to win, or against the better teams in the league. So you win a big game, you lose a game you should have won. You win a big game, you lose a game that was winnable. They won against Tampa Bay, a game they had to win. They took that L to Seattle. This week, if we go by the trends, they're due for a win.
All right, much more with Vashti Hurt as we talk about this big Panthers game, biggest one in the better part of a decade, coming up here on Panthers on the Plus. All right, back here on Panthers on the Plus with our special Friday guest, Vashti Hurt from CarolinaBlitz.com. You can also find her on X at Keep Blitzin', and she's going to be in Tampa Bay. Halftime, you can do a halftime spaces as well, so we can look out for that.
Oh, yes, that's the fans, I'm sure, are going to get quite jiggy in that one, so yeah.
All right, Baker Mayfield, obviously you got to turn him over. You got to get after him, especially in his current health state. Do the Panthers have the horses to get after the quarterback in this game when they really need it?
That's where you hope that Turk Wharton is healthy. That's where you have That's where you have Derek Brown. That's where you have those guys. Derek Brown is having a historically good season with getting to the quarterback as far as sacks. Guy like Nick Carboni, those young guys are going to have to eat on the edge. DJ Wanham has struggled, but he did get a sack last game. Does that kind of get him going? But they're going to have to get pressure on Baker if the Tampa Bay Bucs are put in a situation where they have to throw the ball. How do you neutralize that? How do you neutralize those downfield threats? You make it so the quarterback struggles with getting the ball out at all, or he has to fight to get it out and force those mistakes. So pressure, it starts right there in the trenches for the Bucs and the Panthers.
You mentioned Derek Brown, and he's one of a collection of kind of like handful of seasoned veterans on this team that have made Pro Bowls, that are good on their own right, but haven't tasted the playoffs. J.C. Horn's in there. Chuba Hubbard's in there. There are others. You talk to these guys, every day down there. What is your sense of how they view this opportunity, and if this is their time to go and seize the moment?
I ask these guys, and I think they kind of downplay it just so they don't hype themselves up too much. The one guy who I feel like was not afraid of really saying how much this meant was Chuba Hubbard. He said, yeah, we know the city needs it. We've been through some unsuccessful times, and he's less afraid to really talk about what this means to them as players and to the franchise and to people in Charlotte. So, but I think they feel it. I think they know it. Maybe it will be one of those things where after they win the game, then they can really give us a little honest peek into how they really felt heading into this matchup.
And, Bryce said he didn't know about the Atlanta scenario. I don't believe that. Mike Jack said he didn't either, but I legitimately think Mike Jack went to bed and got a text the next morning.
Right.
That's how I read those two conversations. But what is your sense of how this team, because it's been like 3 or 4 weeks where we've been like, hey, you guys are doing this, but over here, you guys watching this game. Like, what's your sense of how much they're factoring that into this weekend?
Well, Canales purposefully did not show the Tampa Bay score on the ticker at the game. They are really trying to lock in and handle business on their end. They haven't been able to do that. But, I don't think they want to leave it in Atlanta's hands, although they're playing well and they're certainly capable of beating the Saints. Why do that when you can lock it up Saturday at 4:30? Why will you rely on another team to do what you haven't been able to do? You got to close the door tomorrow, and I think that's how they're looking at it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bryce didn't know. If you're locked in really into what you have going on and what you're doing, and I don't know if he watches the games on Sunday where they show a lot of these playoff scenarios. Some guys watch the games outside of football, some of them don't. Maybe he doesn't watch the games. I don't know. But these guys are focused on Tampa Bay, and I think that's a good space for them to be. Don't try to rely on the Falcons to do your dirty work.
All right, this may be parsing things a bit too much, but if they make the playoffs, will it take away a little bit from the excitement or the team's momentum if they get in by losing to Tampa and then Atlanta winning the next day, or is it all square after that?
I think that they'll be disappointed that they couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah.
But the playoffs are the playoffs. And it wasn't as if they didn't earn that way, the backdoor way either. They got it because they had a better record or matchup, head-to-head matchup within the NFC South. I don't know the details of it, but they would have earned it by their play on the field as well. So if you're in, you're in. There are teams who kind of sneak in that way every season. Why not the Panthers be a beneficiary of it? Don't let that damper, what could have been an opportunity to close it out on Saturday. That'll be a good buffer for the team.
Yeah, doing it Saturday at Tampa would be cathartic for the players, the fan base, probably some of us in the media who have covered a lot of bad football. What would this mean to this franchise to make the playoffs, to sweep Tampa at their place to do it?
For the franchise, it's huge. I think that for the franchise, you're a year ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
The Panthers, and from Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, you have a first-time GM, you have a first-time head coach, you have a Bryce Young, who is a quarterback who's still trying to find his way in the league, but shown flashes. So I think year one, is acclimation. Year two, you want to see growth. Year three, you want to push for the playoffs. Year two, you want to push for the playoffs. And year three, you want to be in the playoffs. And if they make the playoffs, they're a year ahead of schedule. And that means that this team could have the actual sustained excellence that David Tepper promised when he bought the franchise several years ago. And so that gives Panthers fans hope, that feeds your fan base that has been starving for years. it is absolutely huge, and it would be huge for the team and the city of Charlotte and the Carolina Panthers.
Final question here for Vashti Hurt from CarolinaBlitz.com. Didn't get real specific on Bryce Young, and we know they're still in the evaluation period with him, especially for a long-term extension. We'll see about the fifth-year option getting picked up this spring. That seems like a likely scenario. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but how big is this game for Bryce Young?
Yeah, this is where you kind of, this could set up your long-term contract. This could be the game on film that your agent takes to the Carolina Panthers and say, do you see what I did with the game on the line, the season on the line, the playoffs on the line? This is what I can produce. And so this is huge for Bryce Young. He's the leader of this team as a quarterback. And so if he is able to come out and play like he needs to, that can set up the team, and that can set up him and his career for a very long time. Huge game. Biggest game of his career so far.
All right, from week 1 to week 18, she's there, and hopefully beyond, Vashti. Hopefully we're all still doing this next week. Thanks for joining me, and safe travels.
All right, thanks.
All right, Vashti Hurt from CarolinaBlitz.com rounding out our big week here on Panthers on the Plus. And don't forget, watch party starts at 4 o'clock right here, taking you all the way through Panthers Bucks. We'll see you then.